499 Founding of Orvabad. Scenes from the Scarlet Stone. Playmates. 8th of First Winter, 499 Founding of Orvabad. The inside of the Scarlet Stone was a warm sigh of relief compared to the ever-increasingly frigid streets of Orvabad. Until the very last days of fall, the Hidarians were spared any inclement weather. That time was at an end, however, as winter had finally arrived. Snow coated Orvabad in these first weeks of winter, and while most lamented the cold, those running the Scarlet Stone welcomed it. Their tavern was busy, especially for a normal Venag night. Men and women gathered around playing Koch. A local bard practiced in one corner on an upper floor to an audience of friends. Even the highest floors of the tavern were brimmed with dukes, duchesses, and the odd sire or dame.
Second floor, table 7, Nazi.
A man cried from behind the counter, and his sister promptly left the group she'd been entertaining to climb the stairs up to the second floor.
Ground floor, table 2. Open your eyes, Yini.
Already heading there,
Yinla said, shaking her head as she went. The man behind the counter smirked to himself but kept a watchful gaze of the upper floors of the Scarlet Stone. It was built in a peculiar way. A slanted semi-spiral gap worked its way from the very top down to his counter. From there, he could see 2/3 of the tables. And as soon as any of them demanded service, it was his task to point it out. These tables they painted in deep Hidarian red, signifying the preferential treatment they would receive, and as a result, they were often reserved. That day had been busy enough for Ginyar. He tugged away at the red vest he wore over his white tunic, its gold weave lining shimmering brilliantly in the well-lit tavern. Then he fixed his cuffs, and was about ready to get back to preparing brews for requests he was behind on. Then his eyes caught something he very rarely saw at the Scarlet Stone. A head of raven black hair, and one that belonged to a young girl, no less. Ginyar left his tasks momentarily and sauntered over to the bar stool she had been sitting on.
Busy night for a little lady, isn't it?
He asked as he leaned over.
Oh, well, not really, just passing time.
Her head drooped slightly, resting upon hands that themselves were on the counter.
Such sullen expressions are better suited for adults struggling to feed their own. Cheer up now and do tell me what ails you.
Loneliness and sadness cannot discern age, Mother used to say.
Ginyar paused and raised a brow and thought to himself.
Just who teaches their children such morbid thoughts? Is she here?
He asked after dismissing the thought.
She's never here. She's very busy. Father sometimes has time for me, but lately he's been very busy too.
So you thought it was a good idea to wander into a tavern on your own? It's snowing outside. Best time of the year to make new friends if I were you.
I can't make friends.
This girl is hiding more than most arms masters I've met. Why so? Come on. You seem to be a sweet young lass.
Her only response was to tug at a lock of her hair, and Ginyar winced and understood. He had been used to listening to battle-burdened, scarred veterans, but the troubles of a young girl seemed to defeat him. There was a line he needed not to cross, and he knew it. Otherwise, any genuine attempt at consolation would immediately turn into perceived pity, and he did not think this girl would appreciate it.
Kara!
Yinla's voice came as a dulcet relief upon Ginyar's ears. The girl's mood immediately shifted as she hopped off from the stool and embraced Ginyar's sister.
You came early. I thought you were busy tonight.
Yinla said.
I am. Well, I should be, but I wanted to see you.
Oh, you're the sweetest. Is it something important that you're missing out on?
Not really. I'm supposed to be playmates with 2 boys, but I'm scared of them.
Well, I'm sure they're as sweet as you are.
You think so?
The girl said with a hint of genuine hope.
I know so.
Yinla said, true to her enthusiastic, optimistic nature.
And if they're not, don't be afraid to rough them up.
Ginyar added, half-jokingly.
Oh, Ginya,
Yinla said, suddenly recalling why she'd come to the counter.
want your vacuum tray and spice it up. They steeped well and they keep coming back.
That I understand. Coming right up.
Ginyar left his sister with the strange black-haired girl as he ducked back to the kitchen to relay the order. Ginyar enjoyed cooking himself, but the sheer volume of demands on a night such as this made it impossible to fulfill anything on time. So he had help, but there were certain steps in the process of every dish that he had to take on himself. However, his sister's message had him remaining in the kitchen longer than he normally would have liked for such a meal, until he heard a commotion outside.
What is it now?
He emerged back to the counter only to freeze in place. 4 guardsmen wearing Hidaria's most prestigious sets of blood-red, ruby-encrusted armor stood at the entrance of the Scarlet Stone. The usually lively tavern gradually fell to graveyard silence. Then one sharp-eyed nobleman, wearing attire that put the patrons of the highest floor to shame, approached the counter, intent on Yinla.
Is there a problem?
Ginyar found his voice and walked around the counter to stand by his sister, who was now sheltering the young girl around her arm.
None whatsoever.
The nobleman replied with a heavy air of high nobility.
I had simply come to retrieve Lady Carmancea. Her presence is highly anticipated.
Yinla turned to the girl, who now sunk back into that sullen expression. But she put on a brave face. She smiled at Yinla and made for the nobleman, only for Yinla to catch her arm.
Are you sure you want to go?
Yinla asked.
If they're as sweet as you say.
She nodded.
Is this about your, playmates?
Ginyar asked as he watched the girl trot to the nobleman, who seemed to treat her well enough to erase any fear for her, at least in Yinla's eyes.
I know I make for them, Sire Nelgalore.
The girl addressed the nobleman.
But it is of no fault of my new friends here. If anything, they've uplifted my mood considerably.
I say, then all is well.
Sire Nelgalore said, then gave Ginyar and Yinla a brief glance.
The caretakers of the Scarlet Stone hold themselves in high regard. See to it that Lady Carmancea's wishes are met when she visits your establishment, and the Emperor will continue to reward his most favored tavern in the city.
Ginyar and Yinla both bowed clumsily, making the young Carmancea stifle a giggle. But then Ginyar's curiosity got the better of him.
We will certainly see to it, even without command. But might I ask just who exactly are your playmates, Cara?
Oh, why, the exalted princes, of course.
Ginyar swallowed hard and nodded as the entourage left.
Ginyo?
Yinla asked.
I just told her to rough up the princes, didn't I?
You very much did. Now about the tray I asked for.